Hi there. For years, Make.com has reigned as a #1 no-code automation tool. But recently, its top spot has been challenged. Now there is a new contender on the block, Gumloop. It's AI native, highly capable, and incredibly user-friendly. I decided to put it to the test by building the same automation in both platforms. I'll walk you through the quirks of each and highlight the pros and cons. Stick around until the end of my verdict. Is Gumloop the easiest no-code automation tool on the market right now? Let's find out. I built a workflow that monitors competitor price changes and sends instant notifications. Actually, I did the whole Gumloop tutorial on that, and you can find it on my YouTube channel. But for this one, I just want to compare the different style of building that Make.com and Gumloop has. First, let's look at the diagram so you can understand the overall process without getting bogged down in the details. The first step is super straightforward. Grab a URL from the list. Then we check if we scraped this URL before. There are two options from here, either it's no or yes. If we can't find this URL in our database, not much we can do. We just need to scrape it and save into spreadsheet. In case we already scraped this URL before, we compare it to the previously saved pricing information. From here, there are two options again. If we identify that there is no changes, do nothing. However, if pricing has changed, we're gonna send a notification email and then update the pricing in this spreadsheet for future comparison. Finally, we schedule this entire process to run every day. Alright, let's ring the bell for this showdown, shall we? In the left corner, or first tab, we have a reigning heavyweight champion, Make.com. Let's dive in. So first, for those of you who are new to no-code automation, here's a TLDR. I built a workflow similar to the one that you just saw on that diagram, and it uses operation modules. When the scenario runs, each module is going to be executed sequentially, performing task and passing results of that task to a next module. Make.com makes connecting to Google Spreadsheet easy. You just connect it here and log in with your Google account. But I would say that integration with third-party apps, that's definitely one of the specialty of Make.com. They've been around for a while, and so they build more than 2,000 integrations with different third-party software. If you're afraid of dealing with API requests, well, using Make.com is a good way to avoid that struggle. Okay, so these first two Google Sheets module, they just help me to map URL from our competitor list to our database, like this spreadsheet where we keep all the scraped data. Next, I have a router that sends us on one of two passes. Actually, the router itself, it just sends us on both of these passes one by one. But to control which pass to go, I have filter here. If has not been scraped, and I just do this by checking if previous spreadsheet returned 0 results. So if this URL wasn't part of our database, then there is nothing to scrape here. Well, let's continue with the first flow. First step, we need to scrape our provided URL, and we use two modules to do this. First module just grabs the HTML code from the page and brings it back, and the second module parse it and convert that HTML code into text. Then we pass it to a direct LLM module. Using a prompt, we ask it to analyze the scraped data. We ask and tell it how to structure the pricing information, And we even remind it that it's very important to give us only that information and don't leave any additional comments. So it's a general LLM module, and we need to be very precise with our prompt of what we want to get from it. Then we pass the scraped pricing information to update our database spreadsheet. Now let's look at the second flow. So this one is going to be triggered if we already scraped this URL previously. And the first three modules there are exactly the same. So we still need to scrape the page to see if there's been any updates. The next module is different. It's another module that is just direct access to OpenAI LLM. At least in this case, it's an OpenAI. And we have a different prompt for it. And I want to draw your attention to how we pass variables here. Make.com, of course, has inputs and outputs as probably any other no-code solution. Every module is connected, and so every module has this line on the left that takes input from the previous module, and then it passes it to the module that follows it. Of course, unless it's a first or the last module in our scenario. But then it also has variables, and variables is something that you can provide to the module. Like in this case, we take results from the previous one, but then plan, actually, we are taking variable from one of the early spreadsheets, something that we keep here. It's our database. And you can see the same for update function. We have variables, we have timestamp, we have URL, we have results. This is all different variables that could be from different modules. This is something that is very common in Make.com, but when we look at the Gumloop, you will see that Gumloop is actually quite different. Anyways, returning back to our flow, if there is a change, we have a filter, we check what our LLM returned, and if there is a change, then we update our spreadsheet database and we send email notification. Of course, if we want to, we can set up to run this flow every day. Now let's talk about Gumloop. First off, I love Gumloop's UI. It feels light and modern with well thought out details. The onboarding experience was great. Like, they taught me how to build a tiny little workflow, guided me through that process, and then rewarded with some credits that I can use. It was amazing. I like how clear, structured everything is. Like, all the modules are just nicely grouped together. There is a descriptions for them. You can see here, like, you can read the description for what module does and figure out what to use based on that. Just compare this to Make. Like, come on. Well, let's go back to our flow. It starts similarly with Google Sheet module. We connect to it. Something that I like here is that Gumloop automatically identified what columns do I have in Google Sheets. And since we only have URL, it created output just for that, just for URLs. So you can see how by making these smart decisions and limiting your options, it really guides you how to build things, right? Like, well, if I only have URLs and I need to pass these URLs to something else instead of kind of figuring out what variable to use. And then next, this is probably the most obvious and key distinction between two platforms: subflows. So Gumloop uses subflow, which is basically, it allows you to embed this small flow within existing flow and run that flow as many times as you need. So here I created a subflow for a router to handle the decision of whether a URL has already been scraped or not. You can see subflows here. In this subflow, we take URL from the previous step and we send it to Google Sheets. I guess I didn't mention, yes, Gumloop newer software and has way less integrations than Make, but at the same time, it integrates with a lot of pretty common and most popular third-party software. The big difference here is that when you run search on Google Sheet in the Make, if it doesn't find that if there is an empty line or something, it will just keep going. But Gumloop will return an error saying that this is a wrong action basically, and you can use this another module, Error Shield, that on top of your Google Sheets module that lets Gumloop to continue running. And what's interesting about it that you can also use this use this module as a filter. So in this case, if there is no results to the search that we did on these Google Sheets, then we're gonna trigger add URL subflow. But if you're receiving results, which means that we have this data already scraped, it's somewhere in our spreadsheet, then we trigger another subflow to check for updates. So I'm sure you can see the parallel with the scenario that we built with Make.com. And at the same time, you can see these differences, like they're just differently architected, or we have to use different components to create the same flow. Something that I really like is subflows. Like, just look how easy it is to navigate. Like, it's like step by step. Everything is modularized, and I think that creates for a much cleaner experience. I can see how maintaining this flow is going to be much easier than if you have everything in one scenario. Scraping and extracting data. So this is our add URL subflow, and scraping and extracting data is where Gumloop AI native approach really shines. Instead of manually performing HTML request and then parsing, we use the scrape website module. Then we extract using extract data node. It processes the data based on the prompt that we provided it, but it's a simpler prompt. We don't have to worry about those use cases when AI is trying to add some commentary to the data that it's extracting, right? Like, there is some system prompt with this module that is already make it much easier. Like, it's designed for this specific task. The only thing we need to tell it is how we want our output, and that works pretty well. To pass this extracting data or extracted data, we have a Google spreadsheet. So we just write this our pricing plan into Google spreadsheet. Nothing very interesting here. And there is another module that generates time stamp and saves it into spreadsheet as well. So let's take a look at the last subflow. It's check for updates. The part on the left, all these three modules are exactly the same to what you just seen. We are scraping this information and extracting pricing from it. And then on the right, we are grabbing the information that we already had in our database. So the only new part is combined text. And we have to use combined text module for one reason, because what we can pass to our AI module here, where we want to compare new and old pricing, is limited by how many inputs this module has. Remember variables in Make? So we have only two inputs, and one of them is prompt. We have to somehow combine our old and new plan to pass it to this AI. And that's what we use this combine module, which just merges this text together. And then we have if-else comparison. So based on the result, if there are changes or no changes, we do either one thing or another. If there is no changes, we do nothing. And if there are changes, first we will want to update our database with new information. But remember the problem? We just combined that new information with old information. So now we need to undo that work. We have a split text, which creates an array with two items. Since new pricing was the first one, we just grab that one and pass it to a spreadsheet. But then on the other side, here we have response output, and that's a response that our AI module gave. So if there was a change, it will give what specific change was it. And here, we would like to pass this change into our Gmail sender as a body. But we probably want to add a little bit of text to it. And so if we just pass it from that output into body input, we can't do this. It's locked. So again, we have to use combined text module where we blend the text that we want to add to that response from our AI module. And that's it. The flow is ready. Now we can schedule to run automatically. Don't forget to head back to index. That's our kind of main starting flow that actually runs all these flows inside. Press add trigger and new time trigger. But as you can see, this feature is only available on a premium plan. And we're going to talk about pricing in a second. Okay, let's summarize it. Well, first, modularity and routing. In Make, you typically use filters to control the flow of your process and also routes, right? And you set different conditions so that different modules run based on the data coming through. In Gumloop, we used subflows and error shields and if-else. Like, we actually didn't use filters at all for the same flow. Like, I like subflows because they allow to create little modules, and every module could be responsible for a specific job. I think it makes the code cleaner. But the filtering, I wonder if using kind of different approaches to filtering is going to make it easier for someone to figure out how to build flows. Then error handling. I think Make, when it runs iterations and returns an empty output, it just keeps running the let's say spreadsheet search. When Gumloop empty output is treated as an error, and as a result you have this new module error shield that you can use, and it explicitly handles errors and ensures that potential issues are caught and managed immediately. I guess there is a break module in make.com, but I find that module, like, you need it for production. You don't really use it as a filter or condition. So I think that's what I found kind of very interesting with Gumloop. Then data handling, variables versus direct input and output. Make.com relies heavily on variables to pass and manipulate data between modules. This offers great flexibility for complex data operations and allows you to maybe use less modules that you would do otherwise, like those combined modules in Gumloop. Gumloop, on the other hand, primarily uses direct input and output connections. Well, this straightforward method is very beginner friendly. It makes it kind of more intuitive. Like, I know what to do with this module or what to do with next module because I can only connect it to the previous inputs and outputs. Like, everything is kind of constrained by this. And it's a good thing. Like, it makes it easier to figure out how to build with it. AI integration, Make gives you direct access to LLMs, which means you have to craft detailed prompts yourself. While this direct access is powerful and flexible, and you can again put as many variables as you want for your LLM to analyze, but it requires a deeper understanding of how to prompt this AI machines properly. Gumloop provides specialized AI modules such as extract data or score. Well, actually, I mean, just just take a look. It's quite a lot of them. I feel like it. I feel like they got more of them since I checked it last time. It simplifies the process and reduces the need for complex prompt engineering, but it also limits your flexibility. Like, I couldn't pass variables. Now let's talk pricing. Make.com offers a variety of pricing plans that mostly differ by the number of included operations. In Make's terminology, an operation is an execution of one module. In our scenario, for example, um, we have a bunch of modules, and then spreadsheet is gonna you're gonna go through list of contacts there, or through list of URLs there, and so everything after this module is going to be uh, operated the number of times this module is operated, right? We found URL, we found 5 URLs. We have 5 URLs in our spreadsheet. We're gonna run through this flow 5 times. You can imagine that if you have a bunch of operations like this, the ones that go through database and do something, and then everything after them has to have to run that many times, how many times this module ran. So yeah, like, you can run through this 1,000 operations a month or 10,000 operations a month pretty quickly. Like, that's one of the big issue that people have with Make. It's nice to start. It's $0 to $9 to $16, but then once you're actually using it, it's kind of like scales pretty quickly, and you are paying a lot of money for all those operations. Um, yeah, Gumloop pricing couldn't be more different. They have a steep jump from $0 to $97 a month. Every plan provides some credit, but unlike Make, they don't charge you per operations. Actually, you can take a look here. They charge you for nodes that cost them money to run, like AI calls or use third-party APIs. So in our example, the nodes that would cost us credits is only those AI nodes, like this, right? Extract and compare. That's the only ones that we're gonna have to pay for, and so it doesn't really matter how many combined blocks or other things we have. Which is good, because definitely the way it's structured today, it forces you to use a lot of those operations. You need to combine first and then split. But then there is another thing. As you remember, to set up things like time trigger to run this scenario on a schedule, or actually use a custom AI model that would give me direct access to to LLM model, like the way Make does, where I can put my own prompt there. I can only do this if I am on a premium plan, so not free plan. And I think the problem here is that going from $0 to $97 a month, it's a pretty steep jump. Of course, with paying only a couple of credits to run that flow, 30,000 operations credit, like here, I feel like it's much more than even 40,000 that Make gives you. so it's likely that you're not gonna run out of credits? Well, Gumloop is a strong challenger. It's more approachable and user-friendly than Make, especially if Make.com reliance on variables, JSON, and prompting feels overwhelming for you. Its modular subflows and AI native features are impressive. However, the pricing is pretty steep and might be hard to justify for someone who is just starting with automation, unless you are sure you will be running a lot of workflows. For me personally, at the moment, Make.com still packs a punch and holds its crown, even though it's missing some modern AI features and has ongoing issues with operation costs. That said, my first experience with Gumloop really impressed me, and I will definitely keep a close eye on how they evolve. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please press a button and subscribe. It really helps me, and I hope to see you in the next one.